Money versus quality, longevity versus time spent with the instrument. There are tons of factors and tons of ways to spend all that thing on those horns. But today we are going to be talking about the best way to put your effort into that perfect instrument. Stick around, we're talking beginner horns today. Howdy everybody, my name is Andrew King. We are here at Alamo Music in beautiful downtown San Antonio. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, and if you could, please visit us at alamomusic.com where we have all of these instruments available. Today we're going to be talking about the starter horn. A lot of different instruments to choose from, right? You've done your research, you looked on Amazon, you looked on eBay's Reverb, you just Googled saxophone and you've been trying to find that perfect one for you or your student just to get started on. Well, hopefully you clicked on this video. So this video is basically going to be going over a ton of different horns. Well, not really a ton, more like two, but kind of encompassing the idea of two different instruments, because a lot of the time when we start out this thing, this is definitely going to be a hobby. And a hobby is something you kind of want to test the waters on. You want to be able to know, hey, I want to play this instrument. So let's talk about that. There's two really big answers to this, and we're kind of going to go over the two. One, you can go for a used instrument. Used instruments are great. There's tons available, there's tons of research done on them, there's tons of resources to get them, and honestly, a lot of the time they end up being a really good purchase, and I've already made that video. But what about the other option? The other one where you don't have to invest as much as, buying that $2,000 horn or whatever that you find online is going to be the internet branded instrument. These are the instruments that you go on Amazon and you put in saxophone, and there's going to be like a ton of different colors and stuff like that, and there's tons of weird company names and stuff that you've never really heard of. Those are the ones we're talking about today. I'm going to be playing one and everything like that too, but we're going to be comparing and contrasting the two. So sit down, we're going to be doing that for a little bit. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the used instrument, and the example I'm going to be using is something that I'm uniquely in the position to talk about. Alamo Music has been around for a really long time. 1929, I think, is when we got founded. That means that we have a lot of stuff just kind of sitting around that's been around for a while. And one of those things is going to be a used instrument called the YAS-23. And that horn is something that we've had for a while. This instrument probably has been in our stock since like mid-90s, maybe? Maybe the mid-2000s, give or take. It's been around for a while. It's a used instrument. It's been through our shop. It's really good. We're going to play it today. We're going to go through some videos of it too. This kind of instrument isn't going to be a lot of money. You can find it on my website for as low as about $450, and it's going to play great. It's been through our shop. We've invested a lot of time into fixing it up, making sure that it's all good for you to play. And there's tons of different resources too to check out and review of all this instrument. So basically you can go online, look up the YAS-23 and be like, hey, this is a really good instrument. This is good for what you're using. Plus, a lot of shops that if you wanted to get it fixed up later on in its life have these parts available because a lot of these Yamaha parts are going to be standardized anyway. So it works out really well in that fact. I'm also a huge fan of Yamaha in general. If you were to get this, maybe a Conselmer, a Buffet, Jupiter, any of these major name brands that you get that you'll basically find on your school sheets, even the old ones are going to be really good picks for the most part. You do want to kind of stay away from the more vintagey instruments, especially if you're starting out, only because there's going to be a lot of issues with parts availability, but also a lot of the modern amenities that we have today that have been applied to these instruments. Things like protruding palm keys, an F-sharp key, really good intonation, bell keys being on the right side instead of everything like on the left and whatnot. Those are issues that you might run into when you're looking at some used instruments. So you just want to be careful that you're buying one that someone has. Get the approval of the teacher or whoever you're getting private lessons with, because that kind of helps a lot. The other side of the coin is going to be the internet brand instruments. Now, there's tons and tons of different brands, and I can't really go into that basically vast void of instruments, but I can kind of generalize what you're going to run into. You're going to put the word alto saxophone into Amazon, and the first thing that's going to come up is this $350 instrument from this company called Mendini. This is a saxophone that you can get. It's going to come with a bunch of stuff. It's going to come with reeds. It's going to come with a cover for the saxophone. It's going to come with a white glove for some reason. I think for the smudges. That makes sense. There's going to be a mouthpiece, neck strap, ligature, everything that you're going to need to get started on the instrument. But the instrument itself is going to be kind of a poor quality overall. The instrument will work for the most part if it didn't get hurt in the shipping stage to you. And the instrument is set up in a way that it won't happen. So out of the box, honestly, these play pretty good. I like 100%. So if you're like an adult going into it and you're like, I don't want to spend, you know, $700 on a brand new instrument, or I want my instrument to look nice and pristine, I want to look good, this would be the one for you. But here's what's going to happen in the long run. A lot of the time, these companies, the ones that make these, like, it's a lot more Chinese made. They're made in other places too, but for the most part, they're made in China. And what ends up happening is you get this instrument, and they'll kind of not have parts available for them. And what I mean is, like, say you're playing it and stuff like that, and you accidentally bump the key guard or something like that onto something. And then you have to take it to the shop, and you have to get it fixed up. But what ends up happening is the key on it ends up bending so bad that they have to replace it. Well, now they have to get a new key, and they're going to hit up the company, and they're not going to be able to get that part from the company. And the best recommendation they're going to give to the tech is tell them to buy a new one. And this kind of can turn into a malicious cycle. While on the other one hand, you can get something from a name brand that's trusted by a bunch of people and stuff, they'll have those parts available. If you get this kind of saxophone, while the upfront cost is less, if you're trying to do this for a long time, or say you're getting really into it, there tending to be a couple issues that way. Other things is that a lot of the quality control is not as good as a lot of the name brands, and you can tell the price is definitely reflective of that, and this is kind of a risk you're going to have to be willing to take. There's going to be intonation issues. A lot of the keys are going to be kind of sharp coming around it and everything like that, so you kind of want to be careful that way too. Other things to be careful of is the instrument is definitely soft, right? The metal purity that they're using on these instruments and whatnot, it's definitely made to be a budget instrument. So you want to be really careful when you're going into it, and being careful with the instrument itself, because again, if you break it or something like that, or something breaks on it, you can't really replace it. But the instrument itself is made of such fragile parts, it's kind of hard to avoid that in the first place. And even if you take perfect care of it, just by practicing it every day and whatnot, and going on and on and on, the keys are going to bend over time. That happens with any instrument in general, and such a soft instrument as this one, it's going to happen a lot faster. I can guess if you practice every day, within 5 to 6 months, you're going to be noticing bent keys, your B flats, your low Bs and whatnot are all going to be leaking. There's going to be a lot of issues. And that's just an example of saxophone. If we're going to go into things like trumpets and trombones and other brass instruments and whatnot, a lot of the slides are going to have a lot of trouble. They're going to be a lot simpler to fix, so you might not need to get extra parts for them. But when you get from those to, like, say, flutes and clarinets, saxophone, there's a lot of issues. So be very careful of that. But if you're just really wanting to test the waters and you're just wanting to see if you want to try it and you're okay with that kind of upfront cost up there, dude, go for it. There's tons of different options. And honestly, after being with things like guitars and pianos and whatnot, I am 100% a believer in the rule of cool. If an instrument looks cool and you want to go back and play it again, that's a good instrument for you. And honestly, there's a lot of cool varieties with these internet brands. Instruments that are different colors, different looks, different shapes. There's different, you can get like nice sopranos for really inexpensive prices. Be careful with the berries. Those tend to be not very friendly in the shipping process. But everything else, honestly, works pretty great. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do a comparison. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to pick out one of our YS-23s that we've had on the shelf for a while. We have it online. You can go check it out. I'll put on the little SKU and stuff like that in the description. And I'm going to put it against a brand new bought Mendini that we got from Amazon like 2 weeks ago. And I want you to hear it. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think about them. And I will see you in a bit. So what'd you think? That was honestly a lot of fun. I haven't played those kind of student horns in a while. The Yamaha 23 it was definitely looser. You can definitely tell it was older. You can kind of hear a lot of the clinky parts. We need to recork it too. But that was definitely a really older instrument. I enjoyed playing it for a lot of the aspects of the intonation was really good across the board. Now, before I go on, one of the big things to remember, and this is with anyone playing and stuff like that, anyone you hear, sound comes from the person, all right? So these saxophones and stuff like that, there will be little minute differences and whatnot, but the things I want to talk about is going to be your comfort with the instrument too. So if you felt like they didn't sound too different and whatnot, there's definitely certain things I can tell. Like a lot of the projection stuff, I can definitely tell that the Mendini had a little bit more to an edge to there. It definitely sounded cleaner, and I definitely think that's because the instrument is a lot more newer. My only thing with that Mendini was it's very bulky. It's very heavy compared to the Yamaha 23 when I was comparing the two. But I know for sure that we can get that the 23 would be easier to kind of keep as a long-term instrument. I'm worried with the Mendini that because of how bulky it was and like the parts and everything like that, they were really easy to kind of move around. I tried messing around with like this low C key and whatnot, tended to move around a little too easily for my taste. Also on the Mendini, the keys were very sharp around the edges. I don't know, it's something I'm not used to. I haven't really played one of these kind of internet rented horns in a while. It's been about like 3 or 4 years. But they have definitely gotten better over time. I will say also, there's another subset of these internet horns that I do actually have a lot of reverence for. If you go and look at any of these internet horns, they're kind of backed by more like internet personalities. Instruments like the Better Sax one through Sweetwater, or they're also like the professional level instruments like the Nebula stuff from over with Shadow B. Is it Nebula? Either way, there's tons of really cool saxophones out there that are backed by really good personalities, and there's a lot of trust involved with that too. So those are fine. The ones I really just think you should look out for, especially if you're trying to take this a lot more seriously, or you really want to put your first step forward and like have an instrument that's always going to be good for you in the long term, is going to be those ones that you find for like $250, $300. God bless you on the $150, $100 range and everything like that. But there's tons of them, tons of good instruments and whatnot. If you have any questions whatsoever about these instruments, get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Do remember to visit us at alamomusic.com, where we have all of these instruments available, including the YAS 23 and the Mendini saxophone that I now have to be responsible for getting out of the store. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.